Hey, it's Allie Edwards and welcome back to another episode of Craft the Story. It is midsummer here in Oregon, and what I wanted to do with you guys today was do a couple more pages in my summer traveler's notebook. I am trying as much as possible to take it a little bit easy this summer and kind of sink into things being slow and having to be okay for some things to be slow. And it's a little bit interesting, I think, as we reflect back on the last year and just that it was like forced slowness and now I'm in a different kind of slowness. I just feel like I'm in a kind of a weird place right now. And I don't know if you guys feel that way too. It's possible. So all of that to say, I'm really liking the opportunity of having this kind of storytelling this summer. And, you know, over the years, I've done so many different styles of memory keeping, but right now the notebook style is something that is really calling to me. Partly, I think, for its simplicity, having it all in one little place. For those of you who are participating in the travel workshop, that starts next week. We have a workshop called Start to Finish Travel, which includes me and 4 other contributors who are making travel albums from start to finish. And I'm actually doing mine in the Traveler's Notebook that was part of the travel collection release. So I'm going to be doing a couple night trip that we did in our camper van a couple months ago. That's what I'm going to be documenting using products from the travel collection inside of a traveler's notebook. But for today, just partly as a way for myself to keep up with my summer documentation, I'm going to go ahead and dive back into this. I took a couple days off. My sister was here visiting, and then that couple days off kind of turned into a few more days of unmotivated living, I guess is what you could call it. So trying to be super real, super honest with what's been going on around here, which is fine. It's summer. There should be some of that. I'm always wrestling with myself in my head of what I'm supposed to be doing. There's a lot of should. So anyway, whole other conversation probably for another day. Let me talk a little bit about, I have 2 specific stories that I want to add. Actually, I have a couple, one in here that I probably won't add in today. The first is that my sister visited from Charlotte, North Carolina, and while she was here, she and I took a day trip, road trip to Crater Lake. And so I've printed out a couple pictures here, which these will fit directly into the album. I also have the map from when you go into the national park, and I'm thinking of cutting this part out, especially with the part with the lake, and having that be a spread inside this traveler's notebook. So I've got that part there. So I'm going to add, obviously going to be adding in some embellishments, some journaling, kind of trying to figure out how I want to do that. And then the other one that I have already set up and ready to go was after my sister visited from Charlotte, then the girls, so my daughter Anna and her daughter Gabrielle, they had gone to camp while she was visiting. So it was really fun. They got to go to camp together, which is really cool for 2 kids that live right on opposite ends of the country. But then they went to visit my parents at the coast. So I've got a picture that my mom sent me that my dad took of the cousins and my mom sitting there. And then I went ahead and I printed out the email from her, from my mom, which was talking a little bit about, saying thank you for letting, them letting Anna go visit, and also a little bit about what they were doing down there. So I thought that would be a fun spread to add in there. I also have another photo that I printed out a while ago that I'm not sure if I'm going to put in here yet, but it's of the jasmine that's in the front yard, and I have a story that goes along with that, but I'm not sure if that one's going to get added in there. So just a quick refresh on this summer notebook here. I've got it opens with Celebrate Summer, lots of photos, lots of opportunity for patterns, different things like that. I've done a few like that and then a few with photos. One of the things that I love about this little notebook is a lot of the photos have very blue sky in it, which is really representative of what summer is like where I live. Rest of the year, a lot of the times we don't always have that blue sky. We have a lot of gray here and rain, which makes everything beautifully green. But the blue sky is something that really happens in the summer. And so I love being able to see that reflected in the pictures that I've taken. And then this one where I was playing around a little bit with adding in adding in an insert. So there's also a video for that. So let's go ahead and dive in. I think for me, what I'm going to start with is I'm going to cut out the map, and I'm going to put the map inside here, and then I'm pretty sure that the next page will then become some combination of either it'll be a single page with my journaling and this will go on a different page. This was just it's so like Wes Anderson-ish. I don't know if you guys know who Wes Anderson is. He's a film director, writer. He has a very specific aesthetic, and both my sister and I were like, that looks totally like Wes Anderson. So I'm gonna dive right in, and we'll see what happens.
One of the things I liked about approaching these summer stories in this way, where I saved a couple, right? Like I saved them up and then I did a few of them at once. That seemed to work really well for me. What I love about these notebooks is that I feel like it's just really simple to get a story told. So whether you bank up a few stories and then do those all at once, or that if you're being more casual and you're just doing them whenever you feel like it, like either way is a really good option. So here you can see that I am cutting down the map. I am cutting it to 8.5 inches wide, which is two 4.25 inch pages by 8.25 tall. So that's basically the size of the spread. With this one, I decided to go ahead and fold it. It actually kind of just worked perfect that's where the original fold was on the map itself. That wasn't intentional, it just kind of worked out like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just glue it right down in there. You'll see that as I do this, I actually end up ripping the map a little bit, but I just glue it back down in place, which ended up being fine. But I love the reminder of bringing in other things, whether it's ephemera, whether it's maps, whether it's things you pick up on your own little daily adventures in your life. They're all things that can be used as content or support for the stories that you're telling. So there you can see that was where the map ripped a little bit, as maps do, but I just left it and went ahead and adhered it down in there. And I'm just going to let you watch a little bit here, because what the next steps are in the process is I decided to stamp directly onto the map, and I'm using Stays On with our 6x8 alphabet stamp. Going ahead and stamping that on top to create my title. Oh, one other thing to note before I get into the stamping too, you're going to see here in just a minute, I decided to cut the page down. So the second page of the map spread, partly because I like the idea that this is going to be more than one spread for the same story, and by having one of the interior pages be a little bit not as wide, so shorter width, I just like that. It's basically like how I like to add inserts into my album-based projects. It's always nice to have just different page sizes and or shapes. And so I literally just went ahead, like you can see right here, and laid it down on there and trimmed a little bit off. And then I'll be adding an Avery index tab to the inside or along the edge there. Such an easy way to play around with these notebooks. totally loving that graphic black type on top of the map. Like that could be one of my favorite. I love the look of that. You can also see here that I'm using the road trip stamp set and adding in the inside of the Avery index tab, and it says bucket list on it, which I know that this was visiting Crater Lake was definitely on my sister's bucket list and something that I was looking forward to doing after many years of not visiting there. It was like a long time ago before kids for me that I was there. So next up, I am trimming down my photos. Again, these are photos that I crop in Photoshop to 4 1/4 by 8 1/4, and then I ended up having to, trim them down a little bit. That's what you'll see here in some of these videos where I'm using scissors to kind of try to get them a little bit closer to the right size. I'm really trying hard to not spend a ton of time worrying about that, but you'll see me kind of fuss around with it and try to get it in the right place. I am also using the corner rounder on the outside edges. I really like that look also. So that's what you'll kind of see, and then you see me lift things up and put them back down again, which is definitely just part of the process. At this point, I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to add my journaling in, but you'll see what I end up doing is I measure that page that I created by cutting off part of the map, and then I take the dimensions over to my computer and end up printing out journaling that is 3 1/4 by 8 1/4 that fits on the back side of that, and you'll see more about that in a minute here. After I got the first photo from our Crater Lake trip adhered, I went ahead and adhered the second one on the back. So the back of the one of my sister and I there, knowing that I was going to add something else on that other page. At this point, I didn't know whether it was going to be journaling or would it be a pattern or some sort of playful something. I didn't know at that point. And again, you can see I'm doing a lot of the trimming down of those outside edges there. Next up, what I decided to do was just get the little story from my mom and that photo of my mom and Anna and my niece, just get them all cut and adhered into the album. And then I knew that I could add on some embellishments later on. I think that's also one of the things that I am really liking about this size. It's pretty simple. The one thing that I'm running into, and I would love to hear feedback from you guys that use traveler's notebooks a lot or notebooks a lot, is I'm getting to the point where it's getting full. I still have a lot of pages left in the back, but because of the way it's like the heaviness of all of the pages are kind of pushing the back out. I don't even know if I can explain that right. I'm just curious, like, what do you do to just start another one? Do you pull out some of the pages? Like, what are some of the things that you guys that have done notebooks before? I'm curious about what some of the things are that you do. I did add in a word phrase sticker there on the underneath the day trip portion, and I'll be adding a date using the rolling date stamp on there as well in a minute. There you can see I'm actually measuring that space to see how wide is that page, and that's where I'm going to end up adhering down some typed up journaling, which is always the best way for me to get more of the story told. I also pulled out the 6x8 chipboard set from our new travel collection. We've got these available in the shop. They're adhesive backed tags and they turned out super cute. So I'm using a little bit of black, I think it's maybe navy and white twine there, and pushed that through, and then I'm going to be able to adhere that right down onto my photo. I kind of changed my mind and I end up adding it a little bit over on the edge. Yeah, that's where it's gonna end up there. All right, next up there is my journaling. Again, I just established a canvas that was 3 1/4 by 8 1/4, knowing that that was the size that I could just cut it out and then adhere it into the notebook. So I'm trimming that out and kind of thinking at the same time, what kind of embellishment do I want to add onto the top of there? And I went back into the travel collection and pulled out these super fun printed wood veneer pieces that I think turned out really great. And I'm going to go ahead and use, there is a geotag in there that felt like it was a good fit for this kind of story that I was telling here. And then I can go ahead and adhere that. I'm just using rolling adhesive to add the wood veneer piece to the top of my journaling, and then we'll adhere that into the notebook itself. Definitely loved changing up that page size. And that's one of the things for the travel album that I'm going to put together, the travel notebook that I'm going to put together for our start to finish workshop. One of my goals in the notebook is thinking of all of the different ways that I can manipulate the pages. Like, what are other things that I can do to, create space for my story, but also to make it playful and fun. So that's going to be definitely top of mind for me in that particular workshop. And again, that workshop starts next week, and the content for that one will be on, I think, Tuesdays and Fridays. If I'm right, I have to look that up. But anyway, moving right along here, I'm going to go ahead and adhere the journaling that my mom had added or sent to me there via email. So I went ahead and just created a background that was like a beige colored background with white text on top. That was also set up in Photoshop. And then I am going to go ahead and adhere my photo that my mom sent as well right on into the back there. All right, for the next photo, which was also part of our Crater Lake adventure, I decided to grab one of the pattern papers from the Circle Scrapbook Kit. Cool thing about these is that they are 8 1/4 tall. They are sized to fit the outside of the page protectors, which is awesome because it happens to just be the same height here. So I went ahead and cut that down, and you can see that I'm, again, using my scissors to trim off the extra there. And I'm going to go ahead and use that pattern as a home for some fun little embellishments and just tiny little journaling spots that relate to this day trip to Crater Lake. glue pen there works really good for adding on little embellishments. And you can see I'm adding just on these little like gold star sequins on the top of the 1-inch punched from white cardstock little circles. And then I just used that loving stamp, which is also from one of the, I think the road trip stamp set. And then I decided to leave that one. I felt like that was good enough. Then moving on to the last story that I'm adding in for today, I'm adding on one of the fabric circles that was a recent add-on to the subscription kits. And then I decided to go ahead and repeat with this same 6x8 alpha stamp. Again, I read through my mom's email there through the journaling that she had sent me and decided to just pick out one word from there, which the word that I picked out was bond. She was talking about how there was such a nice little bond between the girls, and so that felt like a good word or a good title to have on there. One of the things to note, if you didn't note already, is a lot of times when I'm adding journaling, printed journaling in here, I'm leaving some space at the top for an embellishment or for a stamped title or a sticker title or something like that. That's one of the things that's really easy to do and a fun way to be able to add stuff into your projects that is that combination of computer and things by hand. Last but not least, I added on a little bit of chipboard there, a chipboard heart on top of that title.
All right, thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Craft the Story. I will see you back next week with another video.